Good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Brought to you by Kessler Prime and the Renaissance, KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. KesslerPrime.com. Steaks, bourbon, vino. Don't forget that you can find Elijah Craig, award-winning Elijah Craig bourbon at Briarwood Wine and Spirits, 4949 Old Canton Road. We want to welcome you in as we're recapping the weekend, and it's a good time to bring on Steve Robertson, Gene's Page, 247 Sports. Mississippi State gets the conference win. Steve, that was a wild game. I did not have that on my scorecard, that Mississippi State was going to get down, Chapin was going to get knocked out of the game, Camario was going to come in, play really well, and then Chapin was going to finish it out and play really well. How everybody knows how talented and what Camario could be, and God knows we love to talk about it. But how impressed were you with how well he played considering the moment?
I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not. You know, if you've been around him and watched him play high school football, he is a gamer. I mean, people throw that term around, but Camario is the kind of guy that exudes confidence and expects to win, expects to convert big third downs, and so I wasn't surprised to see that. Now, the second possession he came out, he was a little amped up, right? And that's something that you expect with freshmen. There's going to be a little up and down with young guys, but you know, he missed high a little bit on a couple of those, and one of those should have been picked. But I thought he came back that third drive, and you could tell he was a lot more relaxed. I think the first time he goes out there and it's just read and react, right? He didn't have time to think about it. And then all of a sudden you're on the sidelines and you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm on the road in an SEC game that we've got to win. I got to perform. And I thought that second drive was a little bit what you'd expect from a freshman, but I thought the third drive was outstanding. And Mississippi State doesn't win that football game without Camario coming in at a difficult time and kind of settling himself and settling the team. And then, of course, Blake comes in and leads you to 17 unanswered in the fourth. But, yeah, that was the thing. When I asked Lebby about that in postgame, it felt like we played 3 games. I mean, that's how it felt. I mean, it was just so much drama. But as far as the scoring goes, you know, it's pretty typical of what the Petrino experience has been this year. I mean, all 4 of those games that he's been the head coach, they have done some really nice things offensively and then struggled to get stops late defensively. And somebody had to win the game, and fortunately for all of us, it was Mississippi State.
And so people were freaking out when Lebby put Chapin back in, and Lebby's made plenty of mistakes because he's in a massive, learning curve here as no experience as a head coach. But man, that was a grand slam call, Steve, to put Chapin back in. And like you said, I think he went 8 of 12 for 120 and change on the way out. What'd you see?
Yeah, and when they first put him back in, I was like everybody else. I wasn't freaking out, but I was like, well, this is interesting. Why not ride the hot hand, right? And I think that would have probably been the temptation of many coaches. But he trusted his starter. There's a reason that Blake Chapin is the starter. And, of course, he comes in and has the first pass he throws, go off the hands of Anthony Evans into the waiting arms of a defender, but came back and settled it in. But, Anthony Evans did not have a great first half. And then the second half of that ball game, I thought he was absolutely outstanding. And he said in postgame, I didn't think the first part of the game I played up to my abilities. And I agree with him. I think that's good self-awareness. But, with that play at the end, and I even kind of likened it to the Michael Crabtree catch against Texas years ago. I mean, it's like Anthony Evans was not going to be denied. And I think that last hit where he just lowers his helmet and just powers through the third tackler so they get the end zone. It was 1-on-3 out there, and Anthony Evans won.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com. His site is on fire. 247 Sports. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Lebby gets his first conference win. Had to have it. If the game goes a different way, I think we're having a totally different conversation and discussion this morning. But he made the right call. Camario goes in, as Steve walked us through, has success. And then he puts Chapin back in, and they win the game. Steve, if I would have told you that Arkansas runs for 239 on the ground and Mississippi State couldn't get anything going with Fluff and Booth, and that their only rushing option for the day was going to be Camario, if I tell you all that before the game and they only go for 106, what would you have said?
I figured they lost football game. And that's really, in hindsight, the one real question you have is what did Arkansas do to kind of slow down the running game? Because they have not been good against the run at all. But, man, they had a handful of TFLs. And, listen, I get Mississippi State's kind of got to play musical chairs without Albert Reese, again, who is Mississippi State's best offensive lineman. I don't think there's any question. So you take that guy out, for any team, there's going to be, some adjustments you got to make. But, I give Arkansas some credit. I mean, I'd like to know, maybe we'll ask Jeff about that today. It's kind of, what they do that kind of confused you, because it just felt like State couldn't get anything going offensively. And Petrino said in postgame, it was a problem when they put Camario in because they hadn't prepared for him. And all of a sudden, you put him you got to count for him in the run game. It kind of throws your game plan out the window. And I think that's one of the reasons he was so successful is they just simply weren't prepared for him.
Steve Robertson on ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by the Muffaletta at Older Brother Bistro in Starkville. Okay, Evans was awesome. You're right. Look, you know what I thought was impressive? Steve, I'd like for you to weigh in on this. Evans and Thompson both had drops that you could have gone, oh, damn. Yet, because they're veteran players, they played at Oklahoma and Georgia, they never flinched. They made plays late. How about Brennan adjusting on that ball late before Evans scores, Steve?
It almost gets lost, right? Because so many plays had to be made down the stretch. But that's a fourth down conversion. The game's over if Brennan doesn't make that adjustment. And I don't know if anybody was more excited than Chad Bumpus, and you can kind of see his reaction on the sidelines. You talk about a guy that roots hard for his guys. It's Bump, and he was like that as a player. So it shouldn't be a surprise, but Vernon Thompson is probably the second most important player on this team. And not just because of what he does to the defense, what he influences the defense to do, because they've got to account for his speed getting over the top, and then all of a sudden he's making, basically this back shoulder catch and, setting up the game-winning score. This guy's a gamer. Mississippi State did a great job, and a great job by Jeff Lebby getting him on board.
Yeah, credit to Jeff Lebby and Mark Votler. Votler, to me, is kind of the unsung hero of this thing, especially if a couple of those games go the other way earlier. But they still got a shot to win a game or two on the way out. With what Camario did, people have been screaming for him to get a few more plays or reps throughout the year. Now, with what happened, even though Shapen's fine health-wise, do you expect to see more Camario against Georgia, Missouri, and Ole Miss, Steve?
I think you have to. And I think a lot of it, we talked about this after A&M, and I asked Lebby in postgame then, when the game had been decided, right, what would it have hurt to give Camario a series, right? just to let him get out there and kind of get his feet wet. And listen, I'm not ever one that wants to concede a game, but when that game's decided, I thought that may have made a little sense. And, Lebby didn't see it that way, and that's his right. He's the coach. But I think now that you've seen that maybe he can handle a little bit more, maybe you expand the package a little bit and give, again, kind of like the Brennan Thompson effect, you give opponents something else to prepare for. And then because you've done so little with him at times, there's some wrinkles that you can employ that they hadn't seen, maybe perhaps in red zone or short yardage situations. But, that post route that he threw wasn't perfect, but, man, it was almost absolutely perfect. The read, the pace, getting the ball out on rhythm, throwing it out where only his guy could catch it. Evans has to make one little tiny adjustment, and he's in the end zone. You put that on film, and all of a sudden when he walks in the ball game, now defensive coordinators are like, wait a minute, we can't just get ready for basically a wildcat package. This kid can hurt us down the field. And I think that's a great thing to get on film.
The Mississippi State defense had a tough day stopping the run. What do you know about Manning and some of the other guys that were either bumps and bruises or injuries? Have you heard anything, Steve?
I've heard that there's not anything of real significance, and so that could be a week-to-week thing. Brian Lanier came back in the ball game.
Right.
And people were asking me yesterday, so I went back and looked, and so much is going on, it's tough to know. But he did go back in the ball game. I think we all saw the video of Jerron Manning dancing around the locker room. So perhaps it's not anything too significant, but we'll see what kind of happens with Reese. But, and that's one of the things, too, you look at. Auburn and Durkin had so much success against Arkansas with the drop 8. And they're better up front than Mississippi State.
Yeah.
I think State tried to employ some of that same defensive scheme and just didn't quite have the personnel up front to pull some of that off. But you could tell early in that ball game, Green couldn't read. He couldn't find the pocket. And so I think that was good. But what they did to counter is like, hey, they go run 3-man fronts. Let's run it off the edges, and they did. And it took State a little while to kind of slow that thing down. And I thought one of the biggest plays in the ball game is right after the turnover, they run that end around play and get down in the red zone, and you could just kind of feel the game was getting away from State. It just kind of felt like it. It's like, okay, they had the lead and the ball. Oh, now they got it in the red zone. You could just feel the taste of victory in the Hog faithful. I mean, you could just feel it as though, okay, this is the moment. And how many Mississippi State teams in the past would have folded? And I think one of the things you've got to give Jeff Lebby credit for this year and last year is those guys never quit. You know what? They may not always execute at a high level. They may miss a tackle, may have a drop every now and again, but they never quit. And I think that was paid off for this past weekend. And you could, again, make the argument State could easily be 8-1. I said maybe easily is the wrong word to use there, but State probably should be 8-1 right now. I mean, A&M is the only team that's really gotten after State and just
true.
kind of overwhelmed them. Every other game has been a possession game. The ball bounces one way or another. You may be playing for something of real significance. And I think getting the win Saturday just kind of validates the trajectory that Lebby has the team on.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Could I argue that the play of the game was the roughing the kicker by Arkansas, Steve?
I thought it was very significant. But I think he also missed because of that traffic in the pocket back there.
Fair enough.
It's kind of like it, and I saw people upset about the one where he dunked it, and the guy was 10 yards offsides, and like even the people were booing, and I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you upset about? I mean, he was unabated, but that's football. But I haven't rewatched the full game yet, but. I see a lot of people that are upset about some of these penalties, and yes, there were a lot, but I think it's really more of a product of how undisciplined Arkansas played. And when things got chippy, they didn't handle it well, and Mississippi State did.
True.
They didn't respond, and because that's what happens, right? You respond, they're offsetting, or it's the second guy that gets flagged. Arkansas played undisciplined. Bobby Petrino was undisciplined. He's flagged. Hunter Yurachek runs on the field at the end of the game. But everybody's just upset because you just want to win a football game because it changes so much, right? Hunter Yurachek is under fire at Arkansas. Bobby Petrino wants that job and hadn't won a game, so he's been the interim coach. You got guys that are playing to extend the season and hopefully be bowl eligible. So there was a lot of emotion in the game, and Arkansas just simply didn't handle that well.
Yeah, it wasn't a good look. For the Rays, 18 penalties for 193 yards. Just unbelievable. And Mississippi State has had their issues, right? Big time. And they only had 4 penalties, Steve. I mean, credit to the players and Lebby and so on.
Sure. Well, it's like that Hunter Washington thing. When he rode that guy out of bounds, I said, that'll be a flag. And then they pick it up. We see the replay in the booth. I mean, he's engaged about 1.5 yards before the white, and then the action. 2 guys running wide open, SEC athletes. I mean, you're going to go to the ground, and it's probably a judgment call, but he didn't hit him in the white. And I think that's the thing you look at. And they talk about these roughing the passer penalties. The one at the end of the game, not only should there have been holding on Arkansas, but the Arkansas center gets beat on the play and then trips Mississippi State defensive lineman, reaches out, grabs his foot, and trips him. And then, Nave Sanders runs him down and forces the incompletion, and they're wanting a personal foul there. You guys, the game of football is physical. Guys get hurt. You guys tackle each other. It's not two-hand touch. And that was the emotion of that moment. But, it's so interesting about, this got called and this didn't get called. It is absolutely crazy to go back and look at some of that game and see the penalties that weren't called. on Arkansas. So I don't think this is a thing where, you look at and say that we didn't play well because of the officials. No, you didn't play well because you played undisciplined.
Right. But Bobby Petrino's always been undisciplined. I mean, he's a brilliant play caller, and he dialed up. I mean, like we just talked about, they went for almost 240 on Hutzler and Mississippi State on the ground. But he's always been, very talented play caller, but undisciplined. All right, look into this weekend. I know it's early in the week. Y'all posted, 90 different things on the game and recaps and so on. So the line was 7.5. I don't know if it's jumped, and Jackson hadn't looked and told me, but it's an 11 a.m. game. I don't think Georgia's going to be interested. Is there a shot to take this bad boy into the fourth quarter this weekend against Georgia?
Yeah, you hope so. And I remember when all this first started, like when the schedule first comes out, you do your first little snapshot, you begin it, because everybody wants to write all this stuff down. This is, in many respects, a trap game for Georgia. Yeah,
because they have Texas next weekend. Yeah,
exactly. Then you're home at Texas, so you got to go on the road. You're sandwiched between Florida and Texas, right? A team that made the playoff. A huge game, right? And then you got to take a road trip at 11 a.m. to Mississippi State, a team that arguably is the most improved team in this conference. And a fan base that is happy to finally get an SEC win. Let's be honest, if Iowa State lost to Arkansas, there wouldn't be anybody there this weekend.
Yes, you're right.
There will be now.
Yes.
Right? And so I've always liked where Georgia fell on State's schedule. And if I'm Georgia, I don't like that road trip in the middle of a couple road games. I mean, a couple, basically rivalry games. These are home games. But,
sure.
That whole Texas-Georgia thing last year was crazy, Yeah. And so in the middle of all that, I gotta go face the Cowbell Nation, and that, SEC Nation's going to be there and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to be a wild weekend in Starkville, and it's going to be 11 a.m. And I remember talking to Derek Sherrod years ago for an article. And he goes, man, I loved being the home team for 11 a.m. game. I hated being the road team. And he said, being the road team at 11 a.m., you don't know where everything is, right? I mean, you got to get up. Like, you get on a plane. As soon as you get there, you're going through meetings, you go to bed, and then you got to get up, and you got to get taped up, and your whole schedule's wrecked, and you're in an unfamiliar place. And he goes, man, it takes a quarter just to kind of wake up and even realize you're in a football game. He said, it's very difficult on the road team. And so, maybe there's some factors here that help Mississippi State. Number one, Georgia's not as good as they were last year, but they're great. Don't get me wrong. But you look at them offensively; they're not putting up points with the same, frequency. And I think Mississippi State's got a puncher's chance here to make this thing really interesting.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports. What time's Lebby's thing today? 11?
11:30-ish.
Got it. Okay. So with the win, we could be having another discussion this morning. With the win, he's coming back. I think the question will be for a lot of people is, are they willing? Is this group willing to constantly upgrade, Steve? And there was a little bit of upgrading in the offseason, not a lot, but a little bit. I think they need to do a massive upgrade on the staff because this league is nasty and drives the whole thing. And if you're not always upgrading, then you're falling behind. He's coming back. What do you think on? And I know you're probably thinking about the next 3 games, but with him coming back, where do you stand with that?
I think you're always looking to upgrade in every aspect. Staff, roster, support staff, everything. Because if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. I mean, that's an old adage, but it's true. And with all of the attrition within the league that we're seeing, right now, Auburn's opened up, and you got some major jobs that are open. So I think if you're Mississippi State, number one, this is a kind of a best case scenario because Jeff Lebby has obviously shown tremendous progress this year. You've already beaten the over-under. Now you're 1 game away from bowl eligibility, and really nobody can even honestly deny that this program is trending in the right direction. And many of your contemporaries are going through a coaching change, and there's more to come. there's more to come. You could have 8 teams in the Southeastern Conference with first-year head coaches next year. And so if you're Mississippi State, we think about all the progress that we've lost and how far we fell behind. Now you've got a chance to start getting caught up in many respects. And that's staff-wise, that's personnel-wise. I think it's going to be an absolutely wild portal season because you only get the one window, and you got so many different schools and teams that are starting over. And then you look up next year, Jeff Lebby and Mississippi State in year 3 of the Jeff Lebby era and system with more stability. And I think in some respects that's going to make Mississippi State a more attractive place for some coaches and players.
Okay. Auburn's open, as you know. You think in South Carolina and Kentucky?
I think there's a possibility. We'll see what happens with James Franklin and Virginia Tech. There's a big sentiment of people that want to bring Shane to Virginia Tech. And I think South Carolina would probably be okay with that, right? I think South Carolina's like, you know what, Shane's done some good things here. Love Shane and his family to death. But I think it could be a scenario where maybe if James Franklin decides, you know what, I'm not going to take Virginia Tech, I'm going to keep fishing because I can afford to. I think it gives Beamer a chance to get back to where he probably should always have been. It gives him a chance to reset the clock a little bit and gives South Carolina a chance to make a change. I think that could be a win-win-win for everybody. And then, of course, we'll see what happens up the road in Oxford. Lane Kiffin, arguably, I don't think there's any question, the hottest name in the coaching carousel right now. Mm-hmm. And then you'll see what happens with Eli Drinkwitz. So there's going to be some backfilling that goes on with all this stuff, too. And so I think it's a great year for Mississippi State not to have to make a coaching change. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. But I think now Mississippi State's positioning is better now than it has been in some time, just because of the fact that you can easily argue that Mississippi State is trending in a very positive direction in the midst of all of this chaos.
How much time do we have? 30 seconds? Okay. I'm good with DJ Durkin as the next defensive coordinator at Mississippi State. I'll just leave it there. Steve, go to Steve's site, genespage.com, genespage.com, 247 Sports. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
See you.
All right, Dogs win against the Arkansas Razorbacks. The last SEC win was at Arkansas 2 years ago under Zach Arnett. So they've had their way, man, with Arkansas. They couldn't ever beat Houston Nutt when he was at Arkansas. They got one win against Houston Nutt while he was there. He owned Mississippi State. That game was in between Bama and Ole Miss, and just totally screwed up the whole Sherrill thing because Sherrill wanted to beat Bama, and he did. And you had the rivalry game on the back end. And Arkansas, they don't have rivals in the conference. And it just, damn, he owned that thing. And it was frustrating. Tom Luganville coming up at 9:30 on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line.